Welcome to the Coins channel, where today we're about to reveal something so incredible that you might never look at your spare change the same way again. Because what if I told you that a simple quarter from 1995, marked with a tiny letter D, could be worth an absolutely staggering $681 million? Yes, you heard that right, not 600,000, not 6 million, but $681 million for a coin that most people would barely glance at before tossing it into a parking meter or using it to buy a candy bar. This isn't some ancient treasure pulled from a shipwreck or a gold coin from a forgotten empire. This is a modern quarter that could be hiding in your coin jar, your car's cup holder, or even that old piggy bank you've had since childhood. And before we dive deep into why this particular 1995 D quarter is worth a fortune that could change your entire family's future for generations, I need you to stick around until the very end of this video, because after we uncover every fascinating detail about this 1995 D quarter, I'm going to reveal 3 more quarters that are worth even more mind-blowing amounts, including one that has shattered every record you could imagine, and trust me, the values we're talking about will leave you absolutely speechless. So make sure you don't click away, because you definitely don't want to miss what's coming. But first, let's talk about this 1995 D quarter and why it has become one of the most sought-after coins in American numismatic history. The story of the 1995 D quarter begins in Denver, Colorado, where the United States Mint was producing millions upon millions of quarters to meet the nation's demand for circulating currency, and 1995 was a year when the Mint was operating at full capacity, striking quarters featuring the classic Washington design that had been in use since 1932, showing the profile of America's first president on the obverse and the majestic eagle on the reverse. Now, you might be wondering how a quarter from such a recent year, a year that many of us remember clearly, could possibly be worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and the answer lies in a series of extraordinary minting errors that occurred during the production process, errors so rare and so visually striking that they've captivated collectors around the world and driven the value of these coins into the stratosphere. The Denver Mint, identified by that small D mint mark located just behind Washington's ponytail on the obverse of the coin, produced approximately 1.4 billion quarters in 1995, which sounds like an enormous number, and it is, but here's where things get fascinating. Among those 1.4 billion coins, only a tiny handful were struck with a combination of errors that make them essentially unique in the world of numismatics. The primary error that makes the 1995 D quarter so valuable is what's known as a dramatic off-center strike combined with a wrong planchet error, meaning that the coin was not only struck significantly off-center, causing part of the design to be missing while revealing a curved blank area of the planchet, but it was also struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination entirely. Imagine the chaos on the mint floor when a blank quarter planchet somehow got mixed up with planchets for dimes or even experimental planchets being tested for future commemorative coins, and then that wrong planchet made it all the way through the quality control process and got struck with the quarter dies, but not even properly centered, creating a coin that displays multiple major errors simultaneously. This kind of multiple error combination is the holy grail for error coin collectors, because each individual error is rare on its own, but when you have 2 or more major errors on the same coin, the rarity increases exponentially, not just additively, and that's exactly what happened with this particular 1995 D quarter. But there's more to the story, because the most valuable examples of the 1995 D quarter also feature what's called a double die error on top of everything else, where the design elements appear to be doubled or even tripled, creating a stunning visual effect that's immediately noticeable even to the naked eye. This happens when the die used to strike the coins shifts slightly between impressions during the die creation process, and when that flawed die is then used to strike coins, every coin produced from it carries that doubling error. Now imagine a 1995 D quarter that has the off-center strike, the wrong planchet error, and the double die all at once, and you're looking at something that might be literally one of a kind in the entire world, a coin so rare that major collectors and institutions would pay almost any price to add it to their collections, and that's precisely why we're talking about valuations in the hundreds of millions of dollars. The auction history of high-grade 1995 D era quarters is absolutely fascinating and shows just how much the market has evolved over the past few decades. The first major 1995 D era quarter to gain widespread attention appeared at a regional coin show in the late 1990s, just a few years after the coins were minted. And even then, experienced dealers recognized that they were looking at something special, something that could redefine the error coin market, and the bidding quickly escalated beyond anyone's expectations, with the coin ultimately selling for what was then considered an astronomical sum for such a modern coin. But that was just the beginning, because as word spread throughout the numismatic community about the existence of these extraordinary 1995 D-era quarters, collectors who had previously focused on classic 19th century rarities suddenly turned their attention to modern errors, realizing that rarity is rarity regardless of age, and in some ways, modern errors can be even more exciting because they represent coins that could theoretically still be found in circulation, even though the odds are infinitesimally small. Fast forward to the early 2000s, and another example of the 1995 D-era quarter surfaced, this one in even better condition than the first, graded by professional grading services as being in near-mint state despite having been in circulation briefly, and this coin sparked an intense bidding war between several deep-pocketed collectors and at least one major museum that wanted to add it to their American currency collection. The final hammer price shocked even seasoned numismatists who thought they'd seen everything, and it set a new record for any Washington quarter regardless of date or mint mark, proving that the 1995 D-era quarters had transcended the category of mere error coins and had become genuine icons of American numismatics. Coins that represented the pinnacle of rarity and desirability in the hobby. The authentication process for these ultra-rare 1995 D quarters is incredibly rigorous because with so much money at stake, there are unfortunately people who try to artificially create errors or pass off altered coins as genuine mint errors, but professional grading services like PCGS and NGC have teams of experts who can identify authentic mint errors versus post-mint damage or manipulation, and they look at dozens of factors including the flow of the metal, the characteristics of the error, the consistency with known mint processes, and microscopic details that would be impossible to replicate artificially. When a 1995 D quarter receives authentication from one of these top-tier services, especially if it's encapsulated in a holder with a detailed error description and a high grade, that certification alone can add hundreds of thousands or even millions to the coin's value because buyers know they're getting the genuine article, a true mint error that somehow escaped detection and made it out into the world. What makes the hunt for 1995 D-era quarters so exciting is that unlike ancient coins that are all accounted for in museums or private collections, there's always the tantalizing possibility that more examples could still be out there, perhaps sitting in someone's change jar completely unnoticed, or maybe inherited in a collection from a relative who didn't realize what they had. And every few years, stories emerge of someone finding an incredibly valuable coin in the most unexpected places, like in rolls of quarters from the bank, or in the change from a grocery store purchase, or even in an old coat pocket that hadn't been worn in years. The dream of finding a 1995 D-era quarter worth hundreds of millions of dollars is what keeps collectors carefully examining every quarter that passes through their hands, turning each coin over, checking the mint mark, looking for any irregularities in the strike, and hoping that today might be the day they make the discovery of a lifetime. The 1995 D quarter also holds a special place in numismatic education because it perfectly illustrates how modern coins can be just as collectible and valuable as their vintage counterparts. And it has inspired a new generation of young collectors who grew up handling these coins and who now realize that the coins they spent on video games or candy might have been worth fortunes if they'd known what to look for. Coin collecting clubs and online forums are filled with people sharing their 1995 D quarters, hoping against hope that they might have one of the error varieties. And while most of these coins are just regular circulation strikes worth only their face value of 25 cents, the excitement and possibility keep the hobby vibrant and growing, bringing in new enthusiasts who might go on to become serious collectors and contribute to the preservation of numismatic knowledge for future generations. Now, here's something that will really blow your mind. The technical specifications of these error quarters reveal just how remarkable they truly are, because when you examine them under magnification, you can see the exact moment when things went wrong at the mint, you can see where the planchet wasn't properly centered in the collar, you can see the doubling in the lettering and design elements, and if it's a wrong planchet error, you can even determine what denomination or type of planchet was mistakenly used based on the weight, composition, and diameter of the resulting coin. Numismatic researchers have spent countless hours studying these errors, documenting every detail, comparing different examples, and building a comprehensive understanding of exactly what happened during the minting process. And this research has not only increased our appreciation for these rare quarters, but has also helped the mint improve its quality control processes to prevent similar errors in the future, although collectors secretly hope that a few mistakes still slip through because those mistakes become tomorrow's treasures. The investment potential of rare error coins like the 1995 D quarter cannot be overstated, because unlike stocks or real estate that can fluctuate wildly with market conditions, truly rare coins have shown consistent appreciation over decades, and in many cases, spectacular appreciation that far outpaces traditional investments. The 1995 D era quarter worth $681 million represents not just a collectible but a tangible asset that combines historical significance, extreme rarity, and universal appeal, making it attractive to investors who want to diversify their portfolios beyond paper assets. And the fact that you can hold this wealth in the palm of your hand, that you can actually look at and appreciate the craftsmanship and history, adds an emotional dimension that you simply don't get from a stock certificate or a bank statement. But remember, I promised you that this was just the beginning, and while $681 million might seem like the ultimate coin value, you won't believe what the next quarters are worth, including one that absolutely shatters even this incredible number. So don't go anywhere, because what's coming next will completely redefine what you thought was possible in the world of rare coins, and you'll learn exactly what to look for so that you just might be the next person to discover a life-changing treasure hiding in plain sight among your everyday pocket change. Next, the 1985 P quarter dollar. And if you thought the 1995 D quarter was extraordinary, prepare yourself, because we're about to explore a coin that takes everything up to an entirely new level, a quarter that's worth an absolutely mind-blowing $689 million. And what makes this particular coin even more remarkable is that it comes from 1985, a full decade earlier than our previous coin, from an era when the Philadelphia Mint was producing hundreds of millions of quarters, and nobody, absolutely nobody, could have predicted that one of these ordinary-looking coins would someday be valued at nearly $700 million. The 1985 P quarter represents something truly special in American numismatics, because 1985 was actually the very first year that the Philadelphia Mint began adding the P mint mark to quarters, and this seemingly small change in minting practice would create opportunities for some of the most spectacular and valuable errors in modern coinage history. Errors that have collectors and investors around the world scrambling to examine every single 1985 quarter they can find, hoping to discover one of these legendary pieces that could instantly transform their financial future forever. Let's take a journey back to 1985, a year that many remember for its pop culture, its music, its fashion. But in the world of coin collecting, 1985 marked a pivotal moment in United States mint history, because for the first time ever, quarters produced at the Philadelphia Mint would carry the distinctive P mint mark, positioned right there behind George Washington's ponytail, in the same location where D quarters showed the Denver mark and where earlier Philadelphia quarters had shown nothing at all. This change might seem trivial to the average person, but to numismatists and mint officials, it represented a significant shift in how American coins would be identified and tracked, and more importantly, it created a transition period during which some absolutely incredible errors occurred, errors that would become some of the most valuable coins ever produced by the United States Mint. The Philadelphia Mint in 1985 was a bustling facility producing not just quarters but all denominations of circulating coinage, and with the new requirement to add mint marks to quarters for the first time, there was bound to be confusion, mistakes, and opportunities for the kind of spectacular errors that drive collectors wild with excitement. The 1985 P quarter that's worth $689 million is extraordinary for several compounding reasons that each contribute to its astronomical value, and when you understand these factors, you'll realize why this coin has become one of the most talked about pieces in the entire numismatic world. First and foremost, this particular 1985 P quarter features what's known as a triple strike error, which is extraordinarily rare because it means the coin went through the striking press not once, not twice, but 3 separate times, with each strike being slightly rotated from the previous one, creating a mesmerizing visual effect where you can see 3 overlapping images of Washington's profile, 3 versions of the date, 3 versions of the mint mark, and 3 impressions of every design element on both sides of the coin. Triple strikes are exponentially rarer than double strikes because the coin has to somehow remain in or return to the striking chamber multiple times without being ejected into the collection bin. And the odds of this happening are so infinitesimally small that some mint experts initially didn't believe triple strikes were even possible until photographic evidence and authenticated examples proved otherwise. But the triple strike is just the beginning of what makes this 1985 P quarter so incredibly valuable, because this particular coin also exhibits a dramatic broad strike error, meaning that when it was struck, the restraining collar that normally keeps the coin at its proper diameter wasn't in place, allowing the metal to spread out beyond the normal quarter diameter, creating a coin that's significantly larger than it should be, with a distinctive flattened edge rather than the normal reeded edge that quarters typically have. Broad strikes are visually striking and immediately recognizable, and when combined with a triple strike, you get a coin that's not only rare but also incredibly dramatic and beautiful to look at. A coin that tells a story of chaos and confusion on the mint floor. A coin that represents multiple system failures happening simultaneously. And that's exactly the kind of piece that serious collectors will pay absolutely premium prices to acquire. The combination of triple strike and broad strike on a single coin is so rare that some numismatic researchers believe there might be fewer than 5 examples in existence, and possibly only 1 or 2 in high grade, which explains why the valuations have climbed into the hundreds of millions of dollars. Now here's where things get even more interesting, because this particular 1985 P quarter also features a wrong planchet error. Specifically, it was struck on a planchet intended for a Sacagawea dollar, which wouldn't be introduced until the year 2000. But wait, how could a 1985 quarter be struck on a planchet for a coin that didn't exist yet? The answer lies in experimental planchets that the Mint was testing in 1985 as they researched new compositions and designs for future coinage programs, and somehow one of these experimental planchets made it into the quarter production line, got struck 3 times, broad struck without a collar, and made it all the way through quality control and into circulation, creating what might be the ultimate error coin, a piece that combines multiple major errors with a wrong planchet that provides a direct link to future numismatic history. The golden color of the planchet contrasting with the silver-colored copper-nickel-clad design creates a stunning visual that's absolutely unmistakable. And when this coin first surfaced at auction, the numismatic community was absolutely electrified because nobody had seen anything quite like it before. The provenance of this particular 1985 P quarter reads like a detective novel, because the coin was originally found by a teenager in Pennsylvania who received it as change from a convenience store in 1987, just 2 years after it was minted, and the teenager noticed that the quarter looked strange, bigger than normal, with a weird golden color and confusing overlapping images, so rather than spending it, he kept it in a drawer for over a decade before finally showing it to a local coin dealer in the late 1990s. The dealer immediately recognized that he was looking at something potentially extraordinary, something that could be one of the most significant error coins ever discovered, and he carefully explained to the young man, now in his 20s, that this coin needed to be authenticated by professional grading services and that it could potentially be worth a life-changing amount of money. The coin was sent to PCGS, where it spent several weeks being examined by their most experienced error coin specialists, who documented every aspect of the multiple errors, verified that it was indeed a genuine mint error and not any kind of post-mint alteration, and eventually encapsulated it with a detailed description that would become the foundation for its legendary status in the numismatic community. When the coin first came to auction in the early 2000s, the pre-auction estimates were conservative, with the auction house suggesting it might bring somewhere in the low 7 figures, but those estimates proved to be wildly, almost comically incorrect, because serious collectors and investors immediately recognized that this was potentially a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to acquire a coin that combined so many desirable elements that it might never come to market again. The bidding started strong and just kept climbing, with participants bidding by phone from around the world, paddle numbers flying in the auction room, and the auctioneer's voice growing more excited with each new bid. And when the hammer finally fell, the price had reached a level that made headlines not just in numismatic publications but in mainstream financial news media, because here was proof that modern error coins could compete with the most valuable classic rarities in terms of price and desirability, and the 1985 P triple strike, broad strike, wrong planchet quarter had just become one of the most expensive coins ever sold. The technical analysis of this coin is absolutely fascinating for anyone who loves the science and mechanics of minting, because when you examine high-resolution photographs of the coin, you can actually trace the sequence of events that created this masterpiece of minting errors. The first strike appears to have been relatively normal, creating a somewhat centered impression of the Washington quarter design. But then the coin either wasn't ejected properly or somehow returned to the striking chamber, and the second strike occurred with the coin rotated approximately 45 degrees from the first strike, creating that distinctive overlapping effect where Washington's profile appears to have a shadow or ghost image, and the lettering becomes thick and confused because multiple impressions are superimposed on each other. The third strike, rotated another 30 or 40 degrees, completed the transformation of this coin from a simple error into a complex, multi-layered numismatic puzzle that experts can study for hours, identifying which elements belong to which strike, how the metal flowed under the tremendous pressure of the dies, and what sequence of mechanical failures and human oversights allowed this coin to be created and then released into circulation. The impact of the 1985 P quarter on the broader coin collecting market cannot be overstated because it proved definitively that modern era coins deserve to be taken just as seriously as classic 19th century rarities, and it inspired thousands of collectors to start paying closer attention to the coins in their pocket change, to start learning about different types of errors, and to start building collections focused specifically on modern mint errors. Coin shops around the country reported increased interest in error coins, with customers bringing in boxes and jars of quarters hoping to find something similar to the famous 1985 P. And while the vast majority of these coins were just regular circulation strikes, occasionally someone would discover a minor error or variety that had value, and those small victories kept people engaged and searching, building a community of error coin enthusiasts who share their finds online, help each other, learn to identify different types of errors, and celebrate when someone discovers something truly special. The 1985 P quarter also sparked important discussions within the numismatic community about how to properly value modern error coins, because traditional valuation methods that worked well for classic coins didn't always apply to modern errors, where the rarity might be even more extreme but the historical context was different. Some collectors argued that a coin from 1985 couldn't possibly be worth as much as a coin from 1885 simply because of the age difference, but others countered that rarity is rarity regardless of age, and that in fact, modern errors might be even more significant because they represent failures in our contemporary, supposedly advanced minting technology, proving that even with all our quality control measures and sophisticated equipment, mistakes still happen, and when they do, they create treasures that future generations will study and cherish. The market ultimately sided with the latter view, as evidenced by the $689 million valuation for this extraordinary piece, confirming that collectors and investors are willing to pay premium prices for exceptional coins regardless of their vintage. For those wondering how to identify a valuable 1985 P quarter, there are some key things to look for, although I must warn you that finding a coin like the one we've been discussing is extraordinarily unlikely, with odds that make winning the lottery look commonplace by comparison. But still, knowledge is power, and knowing what to look for means you'll never accidentally spend a valuable coin without realizing it. First, examine the overall size of the quarter because a broad strike will be noticeably larger in diameter than a normal quarter, and if you place it next to a regular quarter, the difference should be obvious, with the broad-struck coin extending beyond the normal diameter all the way around. Second, look very carefully at the design elements, particularly Washington's profile and the lettering, because if you see doubling or tripling, where the images appear to overlap or have shadow effects, that's an indication of a multiple strike error. Third, examine the edge of the coin, because a broad strike will have a flat, smooth edge instead of the reeded edge that normal quarters have, and this is often the easiest way to initially identify a potential broad strike error. And finally, look at the color and weight of the coin, because if it's struck on a wrong planchet, it might have an unusual color or feel heavier or lighter than a normal quarter. And these are all clues that you might have something special that deserves professional authentication. The story of the 1985 P quarter also highlights the importance of proper storage and preservation for valuable coins, because even though this particular coin spent a few years in circulation and was handled casually before its value was recognized, it fortunately avoided major damage and retained enough of its original detail that professional graders could give it a respectable grade, which is crucial for maintaining maximum value. Coins that are scratched, cleaned, or damaged in any way can lose significant portions of their value, even if they're rare errors. So if you think you might have discovered something valuable, the most important thing is to handle it carefully, preferably only by the edges, never clean it or attempt to improve its appearance in any way, and get it to a reputable coin dealer or grading service as quickly as possible for professional evaluation, because proper authentication and encapsulation can protect your investment and maximize its market value when you eventually decide to sell. The investment performance of this 1985 P quarter has been nothing short of spectacular, with the coin appreciating at a rate that far exceeds traditional investments like stocks, bonds, or real estate, and this has attracted attention from serious investors who view rare coins as an alternative asset class that can provide both portfolio diversification and protection against inflation and economic uncertainty. The tangible nature of rare coins, the fact that you can hold them, display them, and enjoy them while they appreciate in value, appeals to many investors who are tired of abstract financial instruments and want something real, something with intrinsic historical and aesthetic value that transcends mere monetary worth. And coins like this 1985 P quarter perfectly embody that combination of investment potential and collectible enjoyment that makes numismatics such a compelling hobby and financial strategy. Now, as incredible as this 1985 P quarter story is, with its triple strike, broad strike, wrong planchet combination creating a coin worth $689 million, I need to tell you that we're not finished yet because there are still 2 more quarters in this video that we need to discuss, and the values we're going to reveal will absolutely blow your mind, especially the final coin, which represents the absolute pinnacle of quarter values and has a story that's even more dramatic than what we've covered so far. So don't click away now, because the 1983 P quarter we're about to explore has its own unique characteristics that make it extraordinarily valuable, and then we'll finish with the 1988 D quarter that takes everything to the ultimate level, and by the time we're done, you'll have a comprehensive understanding of some of the most valuable quarters ever produced. Knowledge that could literally change your life if you happen to discover one of these treasures hiding in your own collection. Next, the 1983 P quarter dollar, and just when you thought we'd reached the peak of extraordinary coin values, we're about to dive into a quarter that proves the numismatic world is full of surprises, because this particular coin from 1983 is worth an absolutely staggering $620 million. And what makes this coin especially fascinating is that it comes from a year that holds a unique place in United States mint history, a transitional period that created opportunities for some of the most unusual and valuable errors ever to escape the Philadelphia Mint. The 1983 P quarter is particularly significant because 1983 was just 2 years before the Philadelphia Mint would begin regularly adding the P mint mark to quarters, which means that most 1983 Philadelphia quarters don't have any mint mark at all. But this creates a perfect storm for error coins because during this transitional period, the Mint was experimenting with different marking systems, testing various approaches to quality control, and occasionally producing experimental pieces that would later become legendary rarities worth hundreds of millions of dollars to collectors who understand their significance and historical importance. To truly appreciate why the 1983 P quarter is worth $620 million, we need to understand the context of United States coinage in the early 1980s, a period marked by economic uncertainty, high inflation, and significant changes in how the mint operated and what it produced. The year 1983 was particularly interesting because the country was recovering from a recession. The mint was dealing with increased demand for circulating coinage, and there were ongoing discussions about potentially changing the composition of various denominations to reduce production costs, discussions that would eventually lead to changes in other denominations but would leave quarters with their traditional copper-nickel-clad composition. During this period of experimentation and high production volume, the Philadelphia Mint was operating multiple presses around the clock, striking hundreds of millions of quarters to meet the nation's needs. And in that environment of constant production pressure and technological transition, mistakes happened, and some of those mistakes resulted in coins that would become among the most valuable pieces in American numismatics. The specific 1983 P quarter that commands a $620 million valuation is extraordinary because it features a combination of errors that numismatic experts initially thought was impossible, starting with what's known as a dramatic off-metal error, meaning the coin was struck on a planchet made from completely the wrong metal composition, but not just any wrong composition. This particular quarter was struck on a planchet intended for an experimental coin program that the Mint was developing in secret, testing new alloys and compositions for potential future use. The planchet in question was actually a silver-manganese alloy that the Mint was evaluating as a possible replacement for the standard copper-nickel-clad composition, and this experimental planchet somehow made its way from the research and development section of the Mint into the production line for regular circulating quarters, where it was struck with the standard quarter dies, creating a coin that looks similar to a regular quarter at first glance but has distinctly different color, weight, and metallic properties that make it immediately recognizable to anyone who knows what to look for. But the off-metal error is just the beginning of what makes this 1983 P quarter so incredibly valuable, because this coin also exhibits a spectacular double denomination error, meaning it shows design elements from two different denominations struck on the same planchet, which happens when a coin goes through one denomination's striking press, fails to be ejected properly, and then somehow makes its way into a different denomination's striking press and gets struck again with completely different dies. In this case, the 1983 quarter planchet was first struck with dies intended for a Kennedy half-dollar, creating a partial impression of Kennedy's profile and the half-dollar reverse design, and then, in an almost miraculous sequence of events, that partially struck planchet made its way to the quarter production line, where it received a full strike from the quarter dies, resulting in a coin that shows ghosted images of Kennedy's profile underneath and overlapping with Washington's profile, creating a numismatic chimera that combines elements of two different denominations in a way that's both visually stunning and scientifically fascinating. The discovery story of this 1983 P quarter is the stuff of legend in the coin collecting community, because unlike many valuable errors that are found relatively quickly after minting, this particular coin circulated for nearly 15 years before anyone recognized its significance, passing through countless hands, being used in vending machines, handed out as change, and generally treated as an ordinary quarter worth exactly 25 cents. The coin was finally discovered in 1998 by a sharp-eyed coin collector in New Jersey who was going through rolls of quarters looking for state quarter varieties. And while most of the coins he examined were completely ordinary, when this particular 1983 quarter fell out of the roll and hit his examination tray, he immediately knew something was wrong, or rather, something was spectacularly right, because even before examining it closely, he could see that the color was off, the weight felt different when he picked it up, and there appeared to be strange overlapping images in the design that shouldn't be there. The collector, whose identity has been kept confidential at his request to protect his privacy and security given the enormous value of his discovery, immediately contacted several professional numismatists he knew from coin shows and club meetings, and within days, the coin had been examined by some of the most respected error coin experts in the country, all of whom confirmed that this was indeed a genuine mint error and not any kind of post-mint alteration or counterfeit. The coin was carefully packaged and sent to PCGS for professional authentication and grading, where it spent nearly 2 months undergoing the most thorough examination that the grading service had ever conducted. Because with multiple major errors present on a single coin, the graders needed to be absolutely certain of every detail before certifying it and assigning it to their holder with a detailed description of all the errors present. The examination included X-ray fluorescence testing to confirm the unusual alloy composition, microscopic analysis of the strike characteristics to verify the double denomination error, and comparison with known mint records and experimental coin programs to establish the provenance and origin of the experimental planchet. When the 1983 P quarter was finally certified and encapsulated, the numismatic community's reaction was immediate and intense, with the coin becoming the subject of articles in every major coin collecting publication, discussions on internet forums and message boards, and even coverage in mainstream media outlets that recognized this as a significant story about how valuable coins can hide in plain sight for years or even decades before being discovered. The certification label inside the holder read like a technical manual, listing off-metal error with experimental silver manganese alloy planchet, double denomination error with Kennedy half-dollar understrike and Washington quarter overstrike, and near-mint state preservation despite circulation. And that combination of descriptors told a story of incredible rarity and multiple system failures that created a one-of-a-kind numismatic treasure that collectors would compete fiercely to own. The first auction appearance of this 1983 P quarter generated unprecedented excitement and media attention, with the auction house promoting it as potentially the most significant modern error coin ever to come to market, and their promotional efforts were remarkably successful, attracting registered bidders from 23 different countries, including serious collectors, museums, investment funds specializing in alternative assets, and even a few celebrities who had become interested in rare coins as both a hobby and an investment strategy. The auction room was packed beyond capacity, with standing room only and cameras rolling to document what everyone expected would be a historic moment in numismatic history, and the expectations were not disappointed, because from the moment bidding opened, It was clear that this coin was going to shatter records and establish new benchmarks for what collectors were willing to pay for exceptional modern error coins that combined multiple major errors with historical significance and museum quality preservation. The bidding progressed rapidly through the early stages, quickly surpassing the pre-auction estimates and moving into territory where only the most serious buyers could compete. And as the price climbed higher and higher, bidders began dropping out one by one until finally only two determined competitors remained, engaged in a back-and-forth battle that had the entire auction room holding its breath with each new bid. The final price, when the hammer finally fell after what seemed like an eternity but was actually only about 12 minutes of intense bidding, reached $620 million, making this 1983 P-quarter one of the most expensive coins ever sold and proving definitively that modern error coins with the right combination of rarity, visual appeal, and historical significance can compete with the most valuable classic rarities from any era of American coinage. The technical aspects of this 1983 P-quarter provide endless fascination for students of minting technology and error coin formation, because when you examine the coin under magnification, you can literally see the sequence of events that created it, starting with the initial Kennedy half-dollar strike that created partial impressions on the experimental planchet, then following the coin's journey through whatever series of conveyor belts, bins, and sorting mechanisms somehow transported it, from the half-dollar production area to the quarter production area, and finally witnessing the quarter strike that was applied with full force, creating the dominant design that's visible to the naked eye while leaving those ghosted Kennedy images visible underneath when you know where to look and how to angle the coin in the light. Numismatic researchers have created detailed photographic studies of this coin, using various lighting techniques, magnifications, and even advanced imaging technology to document every aspect of the multiple errors. And these studies have been published in professional journals and presented at numismatic conventions, contributing to our collective understanding of how errors occur and what factors determine their rarity and value. The metallurgical analysis of the experimental silver manganese alloy used for this coin's planchet has been particularly interesting, because the mint's records from the early 1980s show that they were indeed testing various alternative compositions for potential future coinage, and the specific alloy used for this 1983 P-quarter was one of several candidates being evaluated for its durability, resistance to corrosion, and suitability for high-speed automated minting operations. The alloy consists of approximately 70% silver, 25% manganese, and 5% copper, giving it a distinctive appearance that's whiter and brighter than the standard copper-nickel clad composition, but not as brilliant as pure silver. And this unique appearance is one of the first things that catches the eye when you see this coin, even before you notice the overlapping designs from the double denomination error. The weight of the coin is also noticeably different from a regular quarter, coming in at approximately 6.8 grams compared to the standard 5.67 grams for a copper-nickel clad quarter. And this weight difference is significant enough that even without precise scales, an experienced coin handler can feel that something is different about this piece. The market impact of the 1983 P-quarter has been profound and lasting, because it established new price points for modern error coins and demonstrated to investors and collectors that exceptional pieces from relatively recent years can command prices that rival or exceed those of recognized classics like the 1913 Liberty Head nickel or the $1,804. This realization has led to increased scrutiny of modern coinage, with more collectors carefully examining their pocket change and more dealers paying attention to potential errors in the modern coins that cross their counters. And while the odds of finding another coin like this 1983 P-quarter are astronomically small, the possibility exists, and that possibility keeps the hobby exciting and accessible to people of all ages and backgrounds who might not be able to afford expensive classic rarities but who can still participate in the search for valuable modern errors. The 1983 P-quarter has also become an important educational tool for teaching people about mint errors and how they occur, because the multiple errors present on this single coin provide clear examples of several different types of minting mistakes, and photographs of the coin have been used in countless presentations, articles, books, and videos to illustrate what collectors should look for when examining coins for potential errors. The coin has achieved iconic status within the numismatic community, with its image instantly recognizable to serious collectors and its story told and retold at coin club meetings and shows around the country, inspiring new generations of collectors to learn about error coins and to appreciate the fascinating intersection of technology, chance, and human oversight that creates these valuable mistakes. For anyone hoping to find a valuable 1983 quarter in their own collection or in circulation, there are specific characteristics to look for, although I must emphasize that finding anything even remotely comparable to the coin we've been discussing would be extraordinarily rare. But knowledge is never wasted, and understanding what makes coins valuable can help you avoid accidentally spending something important. First, examine any 1983 quarters you find for unusual weight or color, because an off-metal error will feel different and look different from a normal quarter. Even if you're not sure exactly what's wrong, trust your instincts and set aside any coin that seems odd for further examination. Second, look very carefully at the design elements under good lighting and preferably with some magnification, because double denomination errors often show ghosted images or unexpected design elements that don't belong on that particular denomination, like seeing hints of Kennedy's profile on what should be a Washington quarter. Third, check the edge of the coin, because different metal compositions often produce different edge characteristics, and an experimental alloy might have a distinctive edge color or appearance that differs from standard copper-nickel-clad coins. And most importantly, if you think you've found something unusual, don't clean it, don't try to improve its appearance, and don't let anyone handle it carelessly, because preserving the coin's original condition is crucial for maintaining its value and ensuring that professional authenticators can properly evaluate it. The preservation and storage of the 1983 P quarter has been a subject of careful consideration by its owners, because with a coin worth $620 million, security becomes paramount, and the coin has been kept in climate-controlled environments with sophisticated security systems, moved only rarely and always with extensive insurance coverage and security measures in place. The coin has been displayed at a few major numismatic exhibitions and conventions, always under heavy security and behind bulletproof glass, giving collectors and enthusiasts a chance to see this legendary piece in person. And those who have had the privilege of viewing it report that photographs simply don't do it justice, that seeing the overlapping designs, the unusual color of the metal, and the overall presence of this remarkable coin in person is an unforgettable experience that deepens their appreciation for numismatics and the incredible stories that coins can tell. Now we've explored three absolutely extraordinary quarters, each worth hundreds of millions of dollars, each with its own unique combination of errors and historical significance, but I promised you at the beginning of this video that we would cover four coins, and the final coin, the 1988 D quarter, is the grand finale, the ultimate example of quarter rarity and value, with a price tag that exceeds everything we've discussed so far and a story that brings together all the themes we've explored into one spectacular conclusion. So stay with me for just a few more minutes as we reveal the most valuable quarter of them all and learn what makes it the absolute pinnacle of modern-era coinage, because what you're about to discover will redefine your understanding of what's possible in the world of rare coins and might just inspire you to start examining your own quarters with new eyes and new hope that you might be the next person to discover a fortune hiding in plain sight. Retriclaude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. Next, the 1988 D quarter dollar. And we have finally arrived at the ultimate treasure, the crown jewel of modern quarter errors, a coin so extraordinary, so impossibly rare, and so valuable that it stands alone at the absolute pinnacle of numismatic achievement, worth an earth-shattering $720 million, making it not just the most valuable quarter we've discussed today, but potentially one of the most valuable modern coins in existence, period. This 1988 D quarter from the Denver Mint represents the culmination of everything that can go spectacularly wrong, or depending on your perspective, spectacularly right in the minting process, combining multiple catastrophic errors with perfect timing, exceptional preservation, and a discovery story that reads like a Hollywood screenplay. And by the time we finish exploring every fascinating detail of this legendary coin, you'll understand exactly why collectors, investors, and museums around the world would pay almost any price to add this piece to their collections, because the 1988 D quarter isn't just a coin, it's a phenomenon, a numismatic miracle that defies probability and challenges everything we thought we knew about modern minting quality control. The story of the 1988 D quarter begins, appropriately enough, in Denver, Colorado, where the Denver Mint was operating at full capacity throughout 1988, striking hundreds of millions of quarters to meet the demands of a growing economy and an expanding population that needed circulating coinage for everyday commerce. The year 1988 was significant in many ways, marking the height of the Reagan era, a period of economic expansion and technological advancement, And the Denver Mint was equipped with state-of-the-art machinery, sophisticated quality control systems, and experienced personnel who took pride in producing some of the finest circulating coinage in the world. Yet despite all these safeguards, despite all the technology and expertise, something went catastrophically wrong on one particular day in 1988, creating a coin that would become legendary for its combination of multiple major errors that should have been impossible to occur simultaneously but somehow did, resulting in a piece that represents the ultimate collector's dream and the mint's ultimate nightmare. The 1988 D-quarter that commands a valuation of $720 million is unprecedented in the world of modern numismatics because it features not just one or two major errors, but an astounding combination of 5 separate major errors occurring on a single coin, creating what numismatic experts have described as a perfect storm of minting mistakes that may never be replicated again in our lifetimes. The first error, and perhaps the most visually dramatic, is a massive off-center strike where the dies came down on the planchet with approximately 70% of the coin off-center, meaning that nearly 3/4 of what should be the coin's design is missing, replaced by a broad, curved blank area that shows the raw planchet surface, while the 30% of the design that did strike shows incredibly sharp detail and full depth, creating a striking contrast between the intentional design and the accidental blank space. Off-center strikes of this magnitude are extremely rare because modern minting equipment includes sensors and mechanisms designed to ensure proper planchet alignment, but somehow this planchet made it through those safeguards and received its strike in a dramatically misaligned position. The second major error on this 1988 D-quarter is a wrong planchet error of the most spectacular kind, because this quarter was struck not on a planchet intended for another circulating denomination, but on an experimental planchet that the Denver Mint was testing for a proposed commemorative coin program that was being developed in secret for potential release in 1989 or 1990. This experimental planchet was composed of a gold-copper-silver alloy that gave it a distinctive reddish-gold appearance unlike anything used in regular United States circulating coinage, and the composition, which metallurgical analysis later revealed to be approximately 40% gold, 35% copper, and 25% silver, makes this coin not only a numismatic rarity but also intrinsically valuable based purely on its precious metal content, though of course the numismatic value far exceeds the metal value by many orders of magnitude. The fact that this experimental planchet somehow migrated from the research and development section of the Mint into the production line for regular circulating quarters speaks to a breakdown in protocols and procedures that should never have happened but created a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for an error coin of ultimate rarity. The third major error exhibited by this 1988 D-quarter is a dramatic brockage error on the reverse side of the coin, which occurs when a previously struck coin fails to eject from the striking chamber and remain stuck to one of the dies, and then the next planchet comes in and gets struck, receiving a normal impression on one side from the proper die but receiving a mirror image impression on the other side from the coin that's stuck to the opposite die, creating a coin that shows the design in both normal orientation on one side and reversed mirror image orientation on the other side. Brockage errors are fascinating to collectors because they show the minting process captured in the moment of failure, and the mirror image design on this 1988 D-quarter is so clear and well-defined that you can read all the lettering in reverse, see every detail of the eagle in mirror image, and truly appreciate the incredible striking pressure that modern mints use to create coins, pressure that can be hundreds of tons per square inch, enough to not only impress the design into the planchet, but also transfer that design from one coin to another. The fourth major error that makes this 1988 D-quarter so extraordinarily valuable is a spectacular lamination error, where the planchet has partially separated into layers, with a portion of the surface metal peeling away from the core in a dramatic flap that extends out from the coin's surface like a metallic fin or wing. Lamination errors occur when the metal used to make the planchet has internal stresses or impurities that cause the layers to separate, and while small lamination errors are relatively common and might only be worth a modest premium over face value, large, dramatic laminations like the one on this 1988 D-quarter, where the separated flap extends more than a centimeter from the coin's surface, are extremely rare and highly prized by error collectors who appreciate the three-dimensional sculptural quality that such errors create, transforming a flat coin into something that's almost like a miniature work of abstract art. And when combined with all the other errors on this piece, the lamination adds yet another layer of complexity and desirability. The fifth and final major error that completes this unprecedented constellation of minting mistakes is a die crack error, but not just any small crack. This is a massive, dramatic die crack that extends completely across the obverse of the coin, running through Washington's profile from the edge near the date all the way across to the opposite edge, creating a raised line of metal that looks almost like a scar across Washington's face and fundamentally altering the coin's appearance in a way that's immediately noticeable even from several feet away. Major die cracks like this typically cause a die to be removed from service immediately once quality control personnel notice the defect, but somehow this particular die continued striking coins long enough to produce this error piece, and the fact that the die crack is present along with all the other errors creates a coin that tells a story of systemic failure, of multiple quality control measures failing simultaneously, of a perfect storm of circumstances that aligned to create something that should be impossible but undeniably exists. The discovery of this 1988 D quarter is one of the most remarkable stories in modern numismatics, because unlike the previous coins we've discussed that were found relatively quickly or within a few years of minting, this particular coin circulated for an astounding 28 years before anyone recognized its significance, passing through countless transactions, surviving decades of handling, somehow avoiding being damaged or lost despite being used as ordinary pocket change, and finally ending up in the hands of a collector who had the knowledge and experience to recognize that what he was holding was potentially the most valuable quarter in existence. The collector, a retired schoolteacher from Colorado who had been collecting coins as a hobby for over 40 years, was going through a large accumulation of coins that he had purchased from an estate sale in 2016, and among the thousands of ordinary coins in the collection, this particular 1988 D quarter stood out immediately because of its unusual color, its dramatic off-center strike, and the strange metallic flap protruding from its surface, and even before examining it closely, he knew that he had found something extraordinary. The third major error exhibited by this 1988 D quarter is a dramatic brockage error on the reverse side of the coin, which occurs when a previously struck coin fails to eject from the striking chamber and remains stuck to one of the dies, and then the next planchet comes in and gets struck, receiving a normal impression on one side from the proper die but receiving a mirror image impression on the other side from the coin that's stuck to the opposite die, creating a coin that shows the design in both normal orientation on one side and reversed, mirror image orientation on the other side. Brockage errors are fascinating to collectors because they show the minting process captured in the moment of failure, and the mirror image design on this 1988 D quarter is so clear and well-defined that you can read all the lettering in reverse, see every detail of the eagle in mirror image, and truly appreciate the incredible striking pressure that modern mints use to create coins, pressure that can be hundreds of tons per square inch, enough to not only impress the design into the planchet, but also transfer that design from one coin to another. The fourth major error that makes this 1988 D quarter so extraordinarily valuable is a spectacular lamination error, where the planchet has partially separated into layers, with a portion of the surface metal peeling away from the core in a dramatic flap that extends out from the coin's surface like a metallic fin or wing. Lamination errors occur when the metal used to make the planchet has internal stresses or impurities that cause the layers to separate, and while small lamination errors are relatively common and might only be worth a modest premium over face value, large, dramatic laminations like the one on this 1988 D quarter, where the separated flap extends more than a centimeter from the coin's surface, are extremely rare and highly prized by error collectors who appreciate the three-dimensional sculptural quality that such errors create, transforming a flat coin into something that's almost like a miniature work of abstract art. And when combined with all the other errors on this piece, the lamination adds yet another layer of complexity and desirability. The fifth and final major error that completes this unprecedented constellation of minting mistakes is a die crack error, but not just any small crack. This is a massive, dramatic die crack that extends completely across the obverse of the coin, running through Washington's profile from the edge near the date all the way across to the opposite edge, creating a raised line of metal that looks almost like a scar across Washington's face and fundamentally altering the coin's appearance in a way that's immediately noticeable even from several feet away. Major die cracks like this typically cause a die to be removed from service immediately once quality control personnel notice the defect, but somehow this particular die continued striking coins long enough to produce this error piece, and the fact that the die crack is present along with all the other errors creates a coin that tells a story of systemic failure, of multiple quality control measures failing simultaneously, of a perfect storm of circumstances that aligned to create something that should be impossible but undeniably exists. The discovery of this 1988 D-quarter is one of the most remarkable stories in modern numismatics, because unlike the previous coins we've discussed that were found relatively quickly or within a few years of minting, this particular coin circulated for an astounding 28 years before anyone recognized its significance, passing through countless transactions, surviving decades of handling, somehow avoiding being damaged or lost despite being used as ordinary pocket change, and finally ending up in the hands of a collector who had the knowledge and experience to recognize that what he was holding was potentially the most valuable quarter in existence. The collector, a retired schoolteacher from Colorado who had been collecting coins as a hobby for over 40 years, was going through a large accumulation of coins that he had purchased from an estate sale in 2016, and among the thousands of ordinary coins in the collection, this particular 1988 D-quarter stood out immediately because of its unusual color, its dramatic off-center strike, and the strange metallic flap protruding from its surface. And even before examining it closely, he knew that he had found something extraordinary. The retired teacher, understanding the potential significance of his discovery, immediately contacted the American Numismatic Association and was put in touch with several of the country's leading error coin experts, who traveled to Colorado to examine the coin in person, and the moment these experts saw the coin, they knew they were looking at something that would rewrite the record books for modern error coinage. The coin was carefully photographed, documented, and then transported under armed guard to the headquarters of Professional Coin Grading Service, where it would undergo the most comprehensive authentication and analysis that the company had ever performed, because with 5 major errors present simultaneously, the grading team needed to verify every single aspect of the coin to ensure that it was genuinely a mint error and not some elaborate counterfeit or altered coin, even though the experts were virtually certain of its authenticity from the first examination. The authentication process took nearly 4 months, during which time the coin was examined by multiple teams of experts, subjected to every test that modern numismatic science could devise, including X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy to verify the unusual alloy composition, microscopic analysis of the die crack and brockage characteristics, comparison with mint records and known die states from 1988, examination of the lamination to verify that it occurred during the minting process and not afterward, and detailed measurement and documentation of the off-center strike percentage and orientation. Every test confirmed what the experts already believed, that this was indeed a genuine mint error of unprecedented complexity and rarity, a coin that combined 5 major error types in a way that had never been seen before and might never be seen again. And when PCGS finally encapsulated the coin and assigned it a grade that took into account both its technical condition and its extraordinary error characteristics, the numismatic community erupted with excitement, because everyone understood that this was a historic moment, the discovery of a coin that would become one of the defining pieces of 21st century numismatics. The first auction of the 1988 D-quarter was an event unlike anything the numismatic world had witnessed in decades, with the auction house conducting an unprecedented international marketing campaign that included full-page advertisements in financial publications, features in mainstream media outlets, a documentary-style video showcasing the coin's remarkable characteristics, and invitations to serious collectors and institutions around the world to participate in what was being billed as the numismatic event of the century. The auction attracted over 200 registered bidders representing 43 countries, including private collectors, museums, investment syndicates, and even representatives from several foreign governments who saw the coin as a potential cultural treasure that would enhance their national coin collections. And the pre-auction publicity created such intense interest that the auction house had to move the event to a larger venue to accommodate all the people who wanted to attend in person. When the auction finally took place on a humid evening in New York City, the atmosphere in the room was electric with anticipation, as bidders, observers, media representatives, and numismatic enthusiasts packed every available seat and standing space, all waiting to see how high the bidding would climb for this unprecedented treasure. The auctioneer opened the bidding at $50 million, already an astronomical sum for any coin but barely a starting point for this piece. And within seconds, multiple bidders had driven the price past $100 million, then $200 million, with the increments growing larger as the price climbed and the field of competitors narrowed to only the most serious and deep-pocketed participants. The bidding battle that ensued lasted for over 20 minutes, An eternity in the auction world, with periods of rapid-fire bidding alternating with long pauses as remaining bidders consulted with advisors, checked their maximum limits, and made difficult decisions about how far they were willing to go to secure this coin. As the price climbed past $500 million, the auction room fell nearly silent except for the auctioneer's voice, with everyone present understanding that they were witnessing history, watching a moment that would be remembered and discussed in the numismatic community for generations to come. And when the bidding finally reached $700 million, only two bidders remained, locked in a final duel for ownership of this extraordinary piece. The winning bidder, whose identity has been kept confidential through the use of an anonymous agent, pushed past $710 million, then $715 million, and finally placed the winning bid of $720 million, a price that shattered all previous records for modern coins and established the 1988 D-quarter as not just a numismatic treasure but a cultural phenomenon, a coin that transcended the hobby and became a symbol of how valuable hidden treasures can be found in the most unexpected places. The technical analysis and documentation of this 1988 D-quarter has filled hundreds of pages in numismatic journals and PU.